What's good, Raider Nation? It's your boy Sanjit back at it with another video. It's been a couple of days, man, since I posted, and I wanted to go live today. There's so much to talk about. Raiders obviously did not play today. If you're not watching this video live, I'll be live once again after the Raiders-Browns game, so be on the lookout for that. But I want to get into this, man. I want to talk to you guys a little bit, man. Shout out to all you guys that are already here. Freaky Raider, shout out to you. You said Raider Nation for life. David, shout out to you. You said looking bleak with all the outcomes today. Tomorrow we'll decide if we keep hope alive or if start worrying about draft position. Shout out to you, Abram and Koonce 1995. Shout out to all of you guys, man. Let's get into this, man. Let's get into this. Playoffs. They're not out of the picture. Like, we're not done yet, right? I know a lot of fans have given up hope. I know a lot of people no longer have interest of the Raiders this year, right? A lot of people are worried about the draft position for the Raiders this year, but it's not technically over. I see someone's sleepyhead said, "Did we win?" I know you're joking. Obviously, the Raiders play tomorrow. Chef B, what is going on, man? Thank you for tuning in. Thank all you guys so far that have tuned in. Hit that thumbs up button if you guys can. Let's jump into this, man. Today was not a good day for the Raiders. Although we didn't play, the teams we technically needed to lose all kind of won. The Steelers, Dolphins, Colts, Bengals, all of those teams won. I was expecting coming into this weekend that once the Raiders games are over, we'll actually increase a little bit in terms of being on the bubble, almost in that playoff picture. I thought we would go up in ranking. I would expected some of these teams to lose. You know, the Steelers played the Titans, which is a good team. The Colts played the Patriots, which is a good team. And those two teams ended up winning, which is, it is what it is, right? But for the Raiders, we fell, man. We fell in the ranking. Now, obviously, the Raiders have to do a lot to get into the playoffs, right? Like, not only do we have to win, we got to get lucky a little bit. This weekend was not the weekend, but fortunately, we still have a couple more weeks left, right? A couple more games, and the Raiders could, potentially get into the playoffs, but they do have to win the rest of their games, right? That's going to be pivotal. Thank you for all you guys that have tuned in. I see a lot of your guys' comments. Sleepy Head says, I'll miss Carr if he leaves. I think we got to rebuild. We'll get into the Derek Carr conversation maybe a little bit later. If you guys have questions, super chats are always the best way to get featured on the channel. Obviously, right now, as there's not many people here, I'll go through the comments that we can kind of get into. 559 Bounce Her said, did you see Arden Key ball out? I wonder what it's looking like when Cleveland Farrell leaves, if he balls out too. You know what's crazy is Arden Key has always had talent. Like, he's always gotten so close to potentially getting sacks, and with the Niners, he's doing it. And the crazy part is the Raiders got Solomon Thomas and the Niners got Arden Key, and both of these guys got better. So it's not just that Arden Key, it's the Raiders that's the problem, right? Solomon Thomas got better coming to the Raiders, right? So obviously it kind of goes both ways. Sometimes players that go to a different team could get a little bit more out of their career. Obviously, both Arden Key and Solomon Thomas know that this could potentially be their last year in the NFL or last couple of years if they don't perform. But yeah, man, I've seen Arden Key. I believe he has 5 or 6 sacks on the season. I have some Niners friends that, I had told, or they kind of asked me about Arden Key, and I had kind of told them the inside scoop on him. He gets close. He makes some boneheaded mistakes, but he's definitely talented. And I'm glad it's actually working out for him. I know a lot of the times people kind of hate on ex-Raiders, right? Arden Key, Amari Cooper, among some other guys, especially guys that are kind of happy or they make a comment like they're happy they're out of the Raiders. But I'm glad Arden Key's having success over there. At the end of the day, he was drafted as a Raider. So I don't hate on ex-Raiders that go elsewhere and have success, but Arden Key's definitely turned his career around, which is crazy because imagine if the Raiders started him and didn't draft Cleveland Barrow. Instead, they went a different route. Right? Imagine if we still got Maxx Crosby when we got him, and imagine instead of Cleveland Barrow, imagine if we got like Devin White or Devin Bush or one of these other guys, right? And Arden Key could have potentially developed with the Raiders because he potentially could have been the starting defensive end for the Raiders. Yeah, man, it's definitely interesting just to talk a little bit about the playoffs. The Raiders are in the playoff picture still. Right now, they're on the 13th spot. They're not technically eliminated. There are 4 teams: the Jags, the Lions, the Texans, the Jets. Those 4 teams are eliminated, have absolutely no shot at getting into the playoffs. But the Raiders still have a chance. They can still get into the playoffs. We're 6-7. We take on the Browns, who are 7-6, and pretty much every team that is out of the playoff picture has 7 or 8 wins. So for the Raiders, it starts tomorrow. They got to get a win. The crazy part is we play the Colts, we play the Browns tomorrow, and we play the Chargers. So it's not like the Raiders are out of it like 100%, right? We still play a couple of these teams that if we beat, if we beat these teams, we're in the playoffs, right? But we do have to beat those teams, and it starts with the Browns game tomorrow. The Raiders have to finish at worst with 9 to 10 wins, and that's the only opportunity we'll have to get into the playoffs. I see a lot of your guys' comments. Let's just get into some of these, man. Koonce says, dude, you and Wi-Fi Willie should do a live together. I would love to go live with Wi-Fi Willie, man. I'll have to reach out to him to hook up with him and go live with him. Thank you for the comment. I appreciate it. Kevin Lurker said, good evening, Sanjit. Hope you're having a great day. I hope all of you guys are having a great day. Interestingly, I didn't watch any football today, man. I kind of tuned in a little bit to the Sunday night game here before I went live, but I didn't watch football today, and I felt very productive, man. Got a lot done today, so excited with that, man. I feel like ever since my baby's a month old today, so it's been about a month now. It's been crazy. Have not been able to get my work done. So today was nice because I was able to get a lot of my work done. Obviously, the Raiders didn't play, and it is a day off, so that kind of helped out. Tomorrow, the Raiders got a huge game, man. 2:00, Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield may be back. I've been hearing some things that apparently Baker Mayfield doesn't have any COVID-like symptoms. And at the same time, the NFL completely changed the rules literally just yesterday, saying that now at this point, they're not going to test every day as they were in the past. They would only test those people who really have symptoms of being sick. Baker Mayfield says he has no symptoms of being sick. So I don't think the rule goes into effect right away. I think technically he would still have to have maybe 2 negative test results. I'm not 100% sure how that'll work, but Baker Mayfield may play tomorrow. And it would suck because I think for the Raiders, I know some people are saying, let's beat them fair and square and all that good stuff. But would we actually beat them fair and square? I don't know, right? I really don't know. But they can have up to 25 players out, which is pretty crazy to think. They do get their starting guard back, Wyatt Teller, I think Wyatt Teller, one of the better guards in the league, probably their best offense lineman. They get him back, which sucks because he would not have played had the game been yesterday. But it is what it is. Steve Raiders for Life said we don't deserve to be in the playoffs, and I agree with you on that slightly. Right, we don't necessarily deserve it, but if we have. If we're in the playoff picture, if we're fighting for that final spot or two, and let's say we win out, and let's say some of these other teams lose, then why say the Raiders don't necessarily deserve it? If we're in the playoffs, fair and square, we're in the playoffs, right? I understand what you're saying, right? Our team really isn't that good, especially on the offense side of the ball. We're terrible, probably one of the worst teams on the offense side of the ball, right? But hopefully the Raiders can make the playoffs, man. This season started off promising. 5-2 at one point. Thought we were about to make the playoffs, and out of nowhere, the entire season turned around. Sleepyhead said our coaching is so bad. I totally agree with you, and it's not just the coaching; the whole staff sucks, as Steve says here. Going to be very, 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 very interesting to see how the season kind of plays out for the Raiders. Dirty Style says, God bless Teddy Bridgewater. He's a good guy. He absolutely is a good guy. I know he got hurt. I saw the play. I'm not 100% sure exactly what happened to him. But prayers out to Teddy Bridgewater. I hope he's okay. I know he was taken to the hospital. I believe he was carted off the field, taken to the hospital. So hopefully he's okay. Thank you for the comment. Dan Vicka said, Crosby is overrated. And thank you, Dirty, for the congrats. I appreciate it. But Crosby's overrated, and I want to talk about this, man. It's crazy because I'm seeing this crazy-ass debate on Twitter about Maxx Crosby and how overrated he is. Not only does he have like 0 sacks in the past 7 weeks, but Arden Key now has the same amount of sacks as Maxx Crosby. What do you guys think? Do you guys think Maxx Crosby is overrated? Now, here's the thing. I don't think Arden Key is as good as Maxx Crosby. I don't think he's close, to be honest with you. I think Maxx Crosby's much better than him, right? You look at pressures, you look at the type of impact he has when it comes to like win-loss rate against an offensive tackle. You look at the pressures and hits that has on a quarterback, the amount of times he's so close to getting that sack. You look at the times where offensive lines slide towards Maxx Crosby, right? And you look at all those outside of the sacks, you look at all those other things, and you see that Maxx Crosby has a bigger impact than Arden Key ever will, or at least this year Arden Key has or will, right? Arden Key, let's face it, is not double team. Maxx Crosby's double team much more often than Key is, right? At the same time, what is Arden Key? Like the third or fourth player on that defensive line? Maxx Crosby's arguably the guy that the opposing offensive line puts their most focus on, right? You can argue that Maxx Crosby is double team, or at least the offensive line is going to chip and worry about Maxx Crosby more than Yannick Ngakoue, right? You can make that argument. It's not the same case with Arden Key. Now, obviously, not just comparing Arden versus Maxx. I think Maxx is a little overrated. Like, let's be honest. And it's not that he's overrated in terms of like the talent and the production and that kind of stuff. He's overrated in terms of the consistency, right? Maxx Crosby's not consistent. He hasn't had a sack in a number of weeks. He doesn't get to the quarterback the same, right? You look at the Chiefs game, we played a backup tackle the first time, and Maxx Crosby was pretty non-existent. I need to see more from Maxx Crosby. And I'm not saying that he won't develop into that, right? Year 3, he's going to get so much better when he's in year 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. At the same time, also think about this. Like Maxx Crosby has, at this point, more penalties that have led to first downs than he has had sacks. And that right there is an issue. And that's something that he can absolutely clean up. But what do you guys think about that? I definitely see a lot of what you guys are saying. Some of you guys are saying he is overrated. Some of you are saying he's inconsistent. He's not very good. Let me ask you guys another question. I see some people are saying he gets held a lot. Let me ask you guys another question. Is Maxx Crosby worth $25 million? Because that is what he will get, around $25 million. Is Maxx Crosby worth that? At the same time, you look at Yannick Ngakoue, he's getting $13 million. Matt Judon of the New England Patriots is getting about $11 to $12 million. You look at those contracts, and then you look at what Maxx Crosby is about to get, and you guys tell me, what do you guys think? Would you guys pay Maxx Crosby that much money? I'm seeing some of you guys saying yes. I'm seeing a couple of you guys saying no. It's going to be a very, very interesting thing because Maxx Crosby's about to go into year 4. Remember, Maxx Crosby's not a first-round pick. There's no fifth-year option. We don't have that ability to bring him back for the 5th year. What that means is the Raiders got to lock him up sooner than later. If you're going to keep Maxx Crosby, you lock him up after this year because that way you have some wiggle room with the cap, right? His cap won't change in year 4. Year 5 comes, and at that point, you can go ahead and accrue the cap however you want. It's going to be very interesting what the Raiders do. Ultimately, I would like to keep Maxx Crosby, and I think if the Raiders, for whatever reason, don't keep Maxx, I think they'd be foolish for that, especially because unless you're ready to start rebuilding, if you're only going to retool your team, you keep your assets. Maxx Crosby, Yannick Ngakoue, Divine Diablo looks good, right? Trayvon Merrick, even Casey Hayward and Denzel Perryman. Bring those guys back and see what we can do for the next couple of years with those guys. Bring your assets back and just retool. Get one difference maker at the corner spot. Get one difference maker at the linebacker spot. Defensive tackle spot. Get one difference maker. And let's see what we can do, right? Retool, not necessarily rebuild. And I think part of that is going to start with extending our guys that we've drafted. And I know a lot of our draft picks have not panned out. Like, let's be honest. The Raiders draft picks have not panned out very well. But we still have a good roster, right? Like, yes, the draft hasn't been great, but if you do look at the draft, you still have some good players. Maxx Crosby, Nate Hobbs, Hunter Renfrow, among some other guys, right, that are still pretty good players. And then look at the free agency or undrafted guys that we picked up, right? Our starting center, Andre James, is an undrafted guy. You look at our kicker and puncher, we picked these guys up. We brought them in, and they're top tier at their position. You look at some of our other guys, right? Alec Ingold is an undrafted guy. Darren Waller, we picked him up from somewhere else. our other free agents, right? Casey Hayward, Yannick Ngakoue, those are guys that we brought in. I know we didn't necessarily draft them, but they're still good football players that we brought in, and they're on our roster at the end of the day, right? You can't have every single one of your draft picks on the roster. Some people are like, oh, we got rid of Tanner Muse, we got rid of Lynn Bowden, we got rid of some of these other guys that we've drafted already. The thing is we didn't necessarily need them. We didn't have the room to keep these guys regardless. I know that sucks, but if you give me the option between a Casey Hayward, who's a top 10 player at his position, and someone else, that maybe we drafted but hasn't worked out, I would take the guy that's going to be top 10. Dirty Style says Rod Marinelli, coaching is overrated, period. It's crazy to think that, like, is it Rod Marinelli who's overrated, or is it Gus Bradley's defense is overrated? It's so hard to really know, because oftentimes what Rod Marinelli is teaching, he's teaching things that Gus Bradley has told him of what to teach. At the same time, like, this isn't like high school football where you go and your coaches teach you how to swim and rip. Like, this is the NFL. These guys know how to do that. And if these guys want to get better, they do that kind of stuff on their own time, right? When you get into the NFL, you're not learning these new things. You learn those things in the off season or on your own time. Rod Marinelli, I don't know how much he really does to impact this defensive line, but he does seem kind of overrated to me, because our defensive line, although early on it was great, it's really fallen off the past couple of weeks. Even then, you can argue that a lot of the guys that are having success are Gus Bradley guys, right? Yannick Ngakoue, Damian Square came in and had some success early on. Solomon Thomas, although that's not a Gus Bradley guy. Solomon Thomas is a Robert Saleh guy, and Robert Saleh was a Gus Bradley assistant, right? He runs a very similar scheme to Gus Bradley, so you can even make that argument. Solomon Thomas kind of fit Gus Bradley's system. There's a lot that I think about this team and this coaching staff. I would not be opposed to starting brand new head coach, brand new offensive coach, defensive coach. I know Gus Bradley's done a good job, especially with drafting, right? Like the Nate Hobbs pick, like that's top tier. In Trayvon Mayer again, Divine Diablo looks pretty good as well. Like, those are good picks, right? Can't deny that. Thank you for the super chat. Danner310 says we should blitz Malcolm Koonce more as a fifth rusher. I don't really know how I would feel about that, because the thing is Malcolm Koonce isn't a linebacker, right? He's not like an outside linebacker. Are you saying we should move him to outside linebacker? Because Malcolm Koonce is a defensive end, right? He is the same position that Yannick Ngakoue plays for the Raiders. But I do think Malcolm Koonce needs for more playing time. I believe he's played like 16 snaps, and he has 2 sacks, which is crazy to think, right? 2 sacks, 16 snaps. That's pretty good, man. That's pretty good. I would love to see what Malcolm Koonce can do if he plays 800 or 900 snaps throughout the course of a season. But yeah, it'll be very interesting. I love Malcolm Koonce and what he's provided so far, and that's just another Gus Bradley guy as well. But just jumping right back into this, I see a lot of you guys' comments. You guys are saying Maxx isn't worth over 20 million. A lot of people are saying Maxx isn't worth, some are saying it's 15 to 18 million. Do you guys think, though, Maxx Crosby's willing to sign for less than 20 million, right? Because I don't know if he's willing to. I will say this, right? One of the things with Maxx signing with the Raiders is if Maxx Crosby went to a different team, right? Let's say Maxx Crosby went to the New York Giants or the Buffalo Bills or the San Francisco 49ers. And let's say he gets paid $25 million. 30% of that is going to get taken with taxes. 30% of $25 million is $7.5 million, as opposed to if he signed a $18.5 million or $17.5 million contract with the Raiders, it's the equivalent of $25 million in California or somewhere in New York, right? So definitely got to keep that in mind, right? But either way, I just don't know what Maxx is going to sign for. Some people are saying calling him overrated. I don't know, man. It's crazy to think, because when I watch the film, like, I definitely see Maxx doing some good things, but he is definitely not consistent. I do think he will improve over time, right, with that consistency. Aunt Six Soldier, thank you for the super chat, man. I really appreciate it. I'll say it one time only. Super chats go a long way. As you guys know, the film breakdown of videos that I do, or anytime I put any sort of film into my videos, they get demonetized, which means the NFL collects all that revenue from those videos. So thank you for the super chat because those come directly to me. So shout out to you. You said, Sanji, I saw your video of Diablo and all the position he played. What do you think his best position for him? If linebacker, middle linebacker, left or right outside linebacker? That's a great question. Very, very great, good question. Divine Diablo, as you guys know, was a safety in college, right? So he played strong safety, came into the box. He played a little bit of free safety, which means he played deep. Um, and in the NFL, Gus Bradley had told him that we're drafting you and you're going to be our linebacker. You're going to be that weak side linebacker. It's the same position that Corey Littleton currently plays for the Raiders. Divine Diablo was told this is going to be your role coming to the Raiders, and he was cool with it. And he made the transition and he started working on it, and he looks pretty good. This past week against the Chiefs, he didn't play weak side linebacker. Divine Diablo played middle linebacker, and I know to the average person that's not a big difference playing weak side linebacker, playing middle linebacker, but there's definitely a big difference. When a crosser comes and there's a play called, it's not necessarily like a guy that's responsible. It's based off of a position, right? The weak side linebacker does something different than the middle linebacker. When the tight end goes out in motion, the weak side linebacker does something different than the middle linebacker. There's so many small things that differentiate those two positions. And it was him playing middle linebacker against the Chiefs, and he looked pretty good. Now, obviously, we gave up 49 points, but I think Divine Diablo should stay at weak side linebacker. I don't know how that really fits this year because obviously the Raiders have committed to Corey Littleton not only for this year, but for next year as well. So when you commit to Corey Littleton, when is Divine Diablo actually going to get to play? When he's going into his third year, right? And that too, if you're a good football player, right? Like Darius Leonard, for example, for the Colts, he started his rookie year. In preseason, you knew this guy's going to be a special player. He started right away. Divine Diablo has came in and done some great things for the Raiders, but we'll see what the coaching staff thinks, right? In the next 2 to 3 weeks, or I guess there's only a couple games left, but after this week, if Diablo performs well, we'll see what happens in the final couple of games. Is Diablo going to be the guy, or are they going to put Denzel Perryman back in? That'll kind of tell us what they think of Diablo. Personally, I think you keep him as a weak side linebacker. I will say this. I want to see what Diablo can do as an edge rusher. I would like to see if he can get to the quarterback. I believe about 4 or 5 times over the past 2 weeks, he did line up as an edge rusher, and he did come off the edge. But I'd like to see it more often. The Dallas Cowboys have themselves a superstar linebacker in Micah Parsons. They also have themselves a superstar defensive end, an edge rusher in Michael Parsons, and they'd rather have him play edge as opposed to linebacker. But Diablo can probably also play a little bit of box safety, right? Like let's be honest, he did it in college. There's no reason why he couldn't do it in the NFL. I think he's very versatile, and the thing is going forward, especially with Gus Bradley potentially not being here. We don't know if Gus Bradley will be the guy next year. We'll see what the new coaching staff wants to use Diablo for, right? He's a good football player. Like we know that for a fact. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. There's another question here. Sam says, should we cut Abram? Jonathan Abram is, after this year, entering year 4. If the Raiders were to cut him, they would incur a dead cap hit. So it doesn't make sense to cut him. If Jonathan Abram's not the guy for the Raiders, if he's not their future safety, their future strong safety, their future linebacker, potentially, down the line, if Jonathan Abram is not that guy for the Raiders, then you put him on the bench and you start whoever else it is you think is the guy, and you let him play special teams, and then after year 4, you cut him. Will we pick up Jonathan Abram's 5th-year option? Right, we have to make that decision after this year. I don't think so. I think Abram, Cleveland Farrell, and Josh Jacobs are all going to get their 5th-year options declined. None of them are worth what we would potentially have to pay them. Thank you for the comment. It's a great comment. Some people are saying we should get rid of Corey Littleton. Someone else said we should cut Corey Littleton. So the Raiders cannot cut Corey Littleton. We cannot move on from Corey Littleton. I mean, technically we can, but we would incur about a $12 million dead cap hit. So what that means is going into next season, if the Raiders do cut Corey Littleton, we will not have $12 million. it's going to automatically be given to Corey Littleton. Not necessarily in terms of cash. We're not actually giving Corey Littleton cash. It's money we've already paid him. It's just being accrued next year. So the options are, you're already down 12 million. You can keep Corey Littleton, even if he's just a backup. I think he's probably one of the better backups in the league. So I don't think Corey Littleton will not be on this team, if that makes sense. Shout out to you, Raid the Tape. If you guys are not subscribed to Raid the Tape, go check his channel out. Who are your top 3 college prospects right now? That's a great question. I could not tell you who my top 3 guys are. I just started probably 2 or 3 weeks ago watching tape and actually watching some of these guys. The receiving class is super deep this year, which is great for the Raiders. We need a wide receiver. Not good in terms of quarterbacks. The offensive linemen are okay. Evan Neal of Alabama is considered the top tackle in the class. The Raiders haven't had success with offensive tackles from Alabama, but I may pull the trigger on getting him. I think the Raiders still need a right tackle. And I think Alex Leatherwood can develop better at right guard than he will at right tackle. So I may take Evan Neal in the first round if I'm the Raiders. Of course, that's if they're not sold on any of the quarterbacks and they're also committed to Carr. Thank you for the question. I think we'll come back to this question multiple times in the offseason from, once the Raider season's over to April. So thank you for the question. It's a great question. Manish said, we don't need to rebuild. Need a new head coach, offensive coordinator, and add pieces. Gruden tore down, and we can't wait another 20 years now. We need to learn to draft well at top and get more from current players. I totally agree with you, man. You're 100% spot on. The thing is if you guys look at the Raiders roster, we're not a bad roster. Like, we have a good roster, or at least we have a ton of good pieces. I think the Raiders have to hit on their head coach. Whoever their head coach is coming in next year, it has to be a splash guy. It has to be an offensive guy. It has to be a guy like Sean McVay or one of these other guys that can get offenses rolling, especially if they think that Gus Bradley is their defensive coach. And I'm not opposed to Gus Bradley. Like, if Gus Bradley has his guys, and remember, he's in year 1 of getting those guys. But if Gus Bradley gets 2, 3, 4, 5 years worth of having his guys, why would he not be able to have success? He's shown it in the past. I don't see why he couldn't do it in the future. I agree, though. We can't wait another 20 years. Now, obviously, the Raiders have sucked for 20 years, but that's not necessarily because we've only been rebuilding for 20 years, right? Like, let's be honest. We started a rebuild multiple times. We tried making that playoff push, didn't work, and then we would start the rebuild again, right? We started the rebuild with John Gruden. We started the rebuild when Reggie McKenzie got here. At one point, we had Jason Campbell, and then we kind of moved on and got Carson Palmer, and it's kind of been going like that over the past 20 years, right? Like, we'll have like these 4 or 5 year stretches, and then we'll rebuild. We'll go another 4 or 5 years, then we'll rebuild. I don't think the Raiders need to rebuild at all. We don't have bad contracts. We're not in a bad situation. John Gruden and Mike Mayock have done a good job up to this point in terms of building a team, having good contracts, getting rid of some of the bad contracts. We have over $50 million going into next year. So we have a lot of wiggle room to sign some guys. Now, obviously, we'll have to sign some of our own guys, but, $50 million is still $50 million. We can go out and get some players. I know some people want Devontae Adams. Some people want Michael Gallup. I don't know if those 2 guys make sense. I think they're going to be very expensive. $50 million. Do you guys want to spend 40% of that on a wide receiver? Or would you rather make your defense better, right? Let's get a corner, a defensive tackle, a linebacker. Let's fix up the offensive line, right? I don't think a wide receiver is that important, right? At least in my opinion, it's not that important. I think I'd rather have a defense, but that's just me, right? Julian said, who's our coach quarterback next year? Love your channel. Keep the good work. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. It's such a hard thing to really figure out who the coach is going to be, because let's face it, there's going to be some coaches who are also going to get fired this year, right? And coaches that have had success, but maybe they've had 1 or 2 years of being bad, right? And then there's also some other coaches that may come out of nowhere, right? As the last couple of games, playoffs come, some coaches will get a ton of love. Brian Flores kind of came out of nowhere, and he's had a ton of success with the Dolphins. They're fighting for a playoff spot, and he's only in his second year. John Gruden had 4 or 5 years, and he was not able to get into the playoffs. So Brian Flores, is doing a good job. And there's a lot of coaches out there now. in terms of quarterback, that's such a tough question because it's going to rely on who the coach is, right? I've seen some people say Doug Peterson. Some people have said Harbaugh. Some people have said Urban Meyer, right? People have said all these crazy things. And I just don't know who our quarterback's going to be. It's going to really rely on who the coach is. Will someone love Derek Carr? Potentially. Will someone hate Derek Carr? Potentially. There's been so many comments that people have made of Derek Carr. Just looking back over the last 6 months, Joey Bosa said Derek Carr folds when he gets pressured. You hit him one time and he stays shook the rest of the game. And he said something about how when one of the players, I think it was Covington, sacked Derek Carr, before he even got to the sack, Derek Carr curled up, and Joey Bosa said that. Joey Bosa is not the only guy that said that. I remember in the offseason, there was The Athletic does like this tier quarterback ranking, and there was like a GM that said something similar, which is Derek Carr kind of folds once you hit him. He gets rattled. Another guy said something very similar. And then at the same time, some people have said very positive things about Derek Carr. It'll really rely on what this next coach thinks and what type of quarterback he needs for his system. At the same time, I know from my personal experience talking to some head coaches, obviously not necessarily in the league, but some head coaches that I've spoken to, if they were to build, the way to build is by having a great team and really just having a rookie quarterback lead that team, right? Mac Jones is a good example. He has a great team around him. Joe Burrow has a pretty decent team around him, and that a lot of people think is the way to build. I kind of agree with it. I don't know if it makes sense to pay $35 million to a quarterback and then continue sucking on the defense side of the ball, right? I appreciate all the comments that I'm getting. A lot of different people are giving their thoughts on the quarterback. Jordan Davis from Georgia is one of the top 5 prospects. That's from Edgar. Thank you for that comment. One of the guys, surprising that I actually have watched, is Jordan Davis from Georgia. Dude's humongous. He's like, I believe he's like 6'6", 350, or he might even be taller than that. He may be like 6'7". He's probably the biggest human being that I've seen coming out of the draft this year so far. I know Minnesota has another guy too, but that an offense tackle. But Jordan Davis, just to talk a little about him. What's crazy is I don't think Jordan Davis is even close to Christian Barmore, and the Raiders passed on Christian Barmore. I think Christian Barmore is better than any defensive tackle that I've seen so far coming out of this draft class. Jordan Davis, I would not touch him in the first round for the sole reason that he's already big. I don't know if he's going to develop into a pass rusher, and if he does, he's so big, I don't know if he has that movement, right? I don't know what he's going to be like once he gets to the NFL. Is he going to be Linval Joseph, or is he going to be Jonathan Hankins? Because there's a world of difference, right? Linval Joseph in his prime was a great football player. Jonathan Hankins in his prime is just a really good run defender. And I don't need run defenders, right? I need pass rushers from the defensive tackle position. Again, the Raiders passed up on one last year. So I'd be upset if the Raiders had like pick 19 or something and they took Jordan Davis with pick 19, right? This is my opinion. Jesse, thank you for the comment, by the way. Jesse Holloway says, Nelly last year, Jackson this year. I thought DC was our leader in the locker room, but do we really have one at the moment, in your opinion? Thank you for the super chat. I don't think Derek Carr is a leader. And let me clarify those comments. Sometimes, you can say things and you can yell at people and say, let's go, and this and that. And yeah, that's great. But then there's also times where you need to show it on the football field. I'll give you guys a couple of examples. I believe it was last week or the week before. Baker Mayfield took a cheap shot on the sideline. And once the cheap shot happened, his guys kind of, pushed around the guy that hit him. But he got up and he ran into the middle of the field, and he fired the crowd up, and he fired the team up, and he fired people up. Today, Tua of the Dolphins trucked a defender, and it fired everyone up, right? He ran someone over, like one of their safeties of the Jets, I believe, and it fired everybody up. Sometimes being a vocal leader isn't enough. Sometimes you have to show things on the field, and I just think Derek Carr doesn't do that. And I do honestly believe Derek Carr is not the leader that the Raiders need, right? I think that's also why one of the reasons why the Raiders have kind of fallen off. John Gruden, in my opinion, was a great leader. And I feel like one of the things that this team has been missing is a voice, is someone yelling and cussing and screaming and telling Brandon Parker to get his shit together, right? And I'm not sure what you mean by Nelly last year and Jackson this year. I'm assuming you're talking about the fact that maybe some receivers have issues with Derek or something like that, or maybe they're calling out some of our leadership in the locker room. I think the Raiders are missing a leader, and that's one of the issues I have with Derek Carr, right? Is I do think that he lacks that leadership, and I know some people will go against me and saying he's well respected and this and that. Being respected is not being a leader, right? Being a leader is much different. Being a leader is being that guy that people want to go out and go to war with. I personally don't think Derek Carr is that guy. I just don't. That's just my personal opinion. If you guys disagree, I respect your opinion. At the end of the day, everyone has an opinion. Thank you for the super chat, Joe Garcia. If you were the new coach, would you move on from our quarterback? Biggest holes going into the draft. If you were the GM, do you go best player needs? If I was the head coach going into next year, I would not move on from Derek Carr. I would draft the quarterback with the thought process that we are going to move on from Derek Carr, potentially trade him, but I would keep him on the roster for at least this year. And I would potentially get another quarterback via the draft, right? And I wouldn't reach for anyone either, right? It would have to fall perfectly for the Raiders, but I would not roll for Derek Carr. I just don't think Derek Carr is the guy. Um, I've been very open about this, and this isn't the first year. I didn't just start saying Derek Carr is not the guy. I've been saying it for 2.5 years. I made videos of me saying that, right? And that's nothing against Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr's a great person. He's done some great things for Raiders for the Raider Nation. He will always be a Raider no matter what. But at a certain point, a quarterback regresses and doesn't continue to show improvement. You move on. Right, the Philadelphia Eagles moved on from Carson Wentz. It just wasn't working out. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if I was the coach personally, I would get another quarterback, but I would still keep Derek Carr going into next year because I think you still need to not put all the pressure on a rookie and say you're going to start from day one. I think you want to have that natural, the rookie takes over from the vet. The Raiders kind of did that with Derek Carr. I believe it was Matt Schwab, who's our quarterback. He was kind of competing with Derek in the preseason. I believe Schwab took the first string snaps, but going into the week one, it was Derek Carr that was given the job, right? He had wanted out. So I would go with something like that. In terms of what the biggest holes in the draft were, for the Raiders, I think our biggest issues are one, we need a new corner, and I think we're okay this year. But I think in the future we're going to need a new corner. We need another linebacker for sure, and we need a defensive tackle, and we need not just average guys. We don't need Denzel Perryman and Trayvon Mullen. We don't need these type of guys. We need difference makers. We need Marlon Humphrey or Marcus Peters, Tre'Davious White, Stephon Gilmore. We need difference makers at the positions. We need Darius Leonard or Fred Warner or Devin White, right? Or Roquan Smith, right? Guys that make a difference. We don't need another average guy. And I think on the defense side of the ball, that's what the Raiders have to get. I think our offense is perfectly fine. I don't see any issues with the offense. The offensive line obviously has to get better. They have to take that next step, but you're not going to go draft the center or draft the guard or draft the tackle. You have already put all that investment in the offensive line. Maybe you go get a wide receiver. That would probably be the only other thing I would think of, but I would not pay for Devontae Adams. I would not pay $20 million for Devontae Adams. I would not pay $14-15 million for Michael Gallup. I think you can go and draft one of the receivers coming out. But thank you for the super chat. Larry said you can't have the third best quarterback in your division and win. And that is true, right? Obviously, Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes are much better than Derek Carr. People argue that Derek Carr is better than Justin Herbert. There's no comparison. Justin Herbert is a much better quarterback. No comparison at all. And I hate the Chargers. I hate the Chiefs. I probably hate the Chargers more than I hate the Chiefs. But you also have to be honest and not be homer about it and say Derek Carr is the superstar guy when Derek Carr is not a superstar guy, right? Derek Carr is an average quarterback. He's like somewhere between like 10 and 17, right? In terms of where he ranks in the NFL. I think you can win with the third best quarterback in your division. Right, Herbert and Mahomes. Mahomes a top 5. Mahomes probably a top 2. Herbert's a top 6 or 7. So you can have the 8th or 9th best quarterback and still win, right? So I don't think it's necessarily that, but I agree with what your comment. So thank you for the comment. If you guys can hit that thumbs up button, I would really, really appreciate it. There's over 200 of you guys here. I really appreciate it because it is Sunday and it is almost 7:30. Raider Purge said our quarterback is cheap, so maybe we at least keep him as a bridge for now and decide later. Is there any quarterbacks you personally like in the 22 or 23 draft class? To be honest, I haven't watched a ton of the quarterbacks. I've watched a couple, but I just don't know, right? Because the thing is do you want to take a mobile quarterback or do you want to take a pocket passing quarterback for the Raiders? The mobile quarterbacks are always good, right? Because they always make plays and stuff like that. But then they also have these terrible games, right? You look at like Kyler Murray today, and they lost today. They lost to, I believe, the Detroit Lions. Although he did have some injuries, but not him, but his players kind of got hurt. But that's a mobile quarterback for you, right? And then you look at a guy like Justin Herbert or Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes is he's kind of mobile, but there's a difference of being able to step right, step left, and make the pass, have great pocket presence, right? That's not being mobile. That's just being good in the pocket, right? Tom Brady steps up and extends a play, steps right, extends a play, but he's not taking off running, right? The one quarterback I have done an extensive amount of research on is Liberty quarterback Malik Willis. I believe it was Auburn that he initially went to, and then he transferred to Liberty. I like his game. He's not that fast. He's fast, but he's not like Lamar Jackson fast. I don't know if he's that good of a passer for as fast as he isn't, right? If that makes sense. So I don't know if I would go with Malik Willis. Kenny Pickett, I think, is the guy that most people would say is like their top two quarterback. I would be fine with Kenny Pickett, but we're not going to get Kenny Pickett, right? We're not going to pick high enough. Now, right now, I believe it's Jacksonville has the number 1 overall pick. The Raiders could theoretically trade up and get that pick because they already have Trevor Lawrence. We're in a unique spot, right? The number 1 overall pick typically does not go to a team that just took a quarterback the year before, but they have their quarterback in the future, right? The last time it happened, I believe, was Kyler Murray and Josh Rosen with the Cardinals. When that situation happened, the Cardinals decided they were going to move on from Rosen. They got the number 1 pick. And they weren't the number 1 pick the year before. I think the Cardinals had like the number 9 or 10 pick. And I think they actually traded with the Raiders that year. So, but my point is it doesn't happen often. Like Jacksonville just had the number 1 overall pick, but they're not going to take another quarterback. They got Trevor Lawrence. He's their future. So the Raiders could potentially trade. Now, what's it going to cost? 3-4 first-round picks. I don't know if that's worth giving up that many first-round picks unless you're 100% sold on Kenny Pickett. And we'll see what the next coaching staff thinks. We'll see what Mike Mayock and his guys think. Is Kenny Pickett going to be that much better than Derek Carr, right? So you got to consider those type of things. Thank you for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope I didn't skip any super chats. They kind of go by fast here. And I see a lot of you guys' comments, and there's a lot of good comments here. Cuban Raider said, Sanji, is Perryman a lock for us next year? Or do you think he will be signed somewhere else? He's going to finish the year off with 200 plus tackles. That's crazy. That's a lot of tackles. I remember when Patrick Willis used to get like 140, 150 tackles a year. And I used to think, well, that's crazy. And now Denzel Perryman's about to break 200 tackles, which is crazy. I don't think he's a lock for us. I think he's a good football player, but if Gus Bradley's not here, is Denzel Perryman really going to be here? I don't know. Now, I will say this. Denzel Perryman's been very good against the run, but he hasn't been as good against the pass. And it never goes by me how, when Jonathan Abram allows a catch, everyone points it out. Everyone says he's trash. Everyone says he sucks. But when Denzel Perryman or Brandon Faison or Trayvon Mullen allow a catch, it's like, okay, it's fine. It's, it happens once in a while. Right. But it's crazy to me to think that. But regardless, Denzel Perryman, I think we could upgrade over Denzel Perryman. I think having good linebackers that can get after the run are not as valuable as linebackers that can cover. Right. You look at guys in the league like Fred Warner, right? Fred Warner can cover. Even someone like Darius Leonard. Like Darius Leonard's not great in coverage, but Darius Leonard forces fumbles. He'll intercept the pass here or there. He forces turnovers, and I think those are the type of linebackers you want. Denzel Perryman just makes a lot of tackles. It doesn't help us out a lot. If it's not Denzel Perryman, it would be the next guy making the tackles, right? Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. It's actually a really good question. Shout out to my cousin, TJ Gill. Huge shout out to you. You said Derek's biggest problem is pocket presence, in my opinion. There are times he can extend plays. I just don't get why he doesn't do it more, knowing the offensive line suck. I totally agree. The difference, if you guys go watch someone like Tom Brady in the pocket specifically, and you watch how he evades pressure, how he steps up, he'll step left, he'll step right, and he'll make the pass. He'll keep his eyes downfield. And then you guys watch Derek Carr and his pocket presence, and you guys will see Derek Carr. He'll stand there when the pocket starts collapsing. He'll just hold on to the ball and wait until he gets tackled. And if you guys watch it with an open mind, right, like just don't be biased about it. Watch it. You guys will see that Derek Carr, when he has that pressure around him, he kind of panics. And it's crazy because some people disagree with that. But Joey Bosa literally said that he curls up when he has pressure around him. He curls up. Like if a player like Joey Bosa saying it, and he's not the only one that said it, right? There was an NFL GM that told The Athletic the same exact thing when ranking Derek Carr. Right? They said that he panics when there's pressure around him. The term, as BG33 says in the comments, it's happy feet. And that's Derek Carr. You smack Derek Carr one time, and then he'll check the ball off because he feels that there's pressure coming, and there's no pressure, right? And that right there is the biggest issue for me with Derek Carr. He has happy feet. He doesn't do a good job feeling pressure in his pocket presence, right? And all that kind of goes together. And I know some people can say, "Oh, it's his offensive line sucks." It sucks this year, but it hasn't always sucked, right? To be fair, Derek Carr's had a much better offensive line than most quarterbacks in the league, right? Like, let's be honest. I know it might not be this year or even in 2018, but every year after that, like he's had Clutchy Osemele, Donald Penn, Colton Miller, Rodney Hudson, Gabe Jackson. I can't even name how many other guys he's had, but I know he's had a lot of good offensive linemen, right? Guys that were top tier at their position. Shout out to you. I appreciate it. Derek Carr could still get better, but I just don't know, right? I don't know if he's the guy we should move forward with. Bass Monkey said, Arden key balled out today. I talked about it at the beginning of this video. So if you guys want to see my thoughts on that, just go back to the beginning of the video. Casey said Herbert's receivers help him a lot. Now, here's the thing, because you make that point that Justin Herbert's receivers help him out a lot. Justin Herbert throws the ball up to Mike Williams, 50-50 balls, and Mike Williams brings them down. How many 50-50 balls do you see Derek Carr throw up? And I'm not talking about these crazy, like, super high throws. I'm talking about passes that are actually catchable, not passes out of bounds. How many times has he thrown Brian Edwards or Darren Waller a 50-50 ball as Justin Herbert throws to his guys? I can't tell you one time this year. Again, I'm not talking about, a guy's running deep and he throw it deep and he's trying to find the ball in the air. I'm talking about like a 25-yard 50-50 throw, because Justin Herbert throws those balls up all the time to Mike Williams, and Mike Williams brings them down. Derek Carr doesn't give his guys the opportunity to bring those passes in. At the same time, Justin Herbert doesn't have that much better of an offense than Derek Carr, if it's even better, right? If the Raiders' offense is healthy, our offense is pretty freaking good, right? You look at the weapons that the Raiders have, and you compare those guys to some other teams, our offense is not that bad. But I do agree with what you're saying, right? Like Herbert's receivers definitely help him. But I think that offense is obviously different than the Raiders' offense, right? Like the Raiders throw 2-3-yard throws. Herbert throws 10, 15, 20-yard throws, right? And I think that's a big difference between the Raiders and the Chargers offense. Obviously, we'll see once the Raiders bring in a new coaching staff, right? Everything's going to change. But thank you for the super chat. Jesse Holloway says, glad to see your channel doing so well, bro. Been following for a minute. F drafting a quarterback, roll with DC for one more year, or trade him and picks for another quarterback. And I would not be opposed to that. I would not be opposed to not drafting a quarterback and just rolling with Derek Carr. I'll obviously continue being tough on Derek, right? That's not going to change until he proves me wrong consistently, right? Because he's kind of inconsistent. But I'm fine with moving forward with Derek Carr. I have no issues with that. You can always trade him in the future. I don't know what his trade value is. Some people think he's worth multiple first-round picks. I'd be surprised if we even got more than a second-round pick for Derek. That's just my personal opinion. I appreciate the fact that you've been following me for a minute. Shout out to you, man. Shout out to you. Cuban Raider said, you are speaking facts. Carr doesn't risk it enough. And that is the issue with Derek Carr. He just doesn't do it. He doesn't get his guys the ball. People love to blame Brian Edwards, right? But if you look at Bryan Edwards' statistics, targets, receptions, yards, on average, right? Based off of his targets, on average, he's on pace with being a top 5 wide receiver. I think he has like 30 or 40 targets. But if he had like 90 or 100 targets, the way that like Devontae Adams does, or some of these top tier wide receivers, he would have the same statistics, if you adjust for that, right? The thing is he doesn't get the snaps, he doesn't get the targets, and you can say that's on him. You can also say that's on Derek Carr, right? You can say it either way. Kind of goes both ways. I would even argue that a quarterback makes a wide receiver much better than the wide receiver makes a quarterback, right? You can look at a guy like Larry Fitzgerald. His best years would come with better quarterbacks than worse quarterbacks, right? You look at any wide receiver, right? That's kind of kind of holds true among most quarterbacks, right? Wide receivers don't make quarterbacks better. Quarterbacks make wide receivers better. Peyton Manning had 2 Hall of Fame wide receivers. And I wonder if they would have been Hall of Famers if they played with Jamarcus Russell, right? Definitely think about that. Huge shout out to you for the super chat, man. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, man. I kind of want to just talk some Raiders football. Make sure you guys join me tomorrow. I plan to go live right after the Raiders game. Let's hope we get a win, man. 2:00 tomorrow, the Cleveland Browns, Las Vegas Raiders. It's a huge game, man. Playoffs are on the line. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below if you guys are not watching this live. Shout out to all of you guys that did watch it live. If you guys can hit that thumbs up button, just takes a second. I would really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time tomorrow.